Have you seen me dice bag? The Grognard Files.
Hello, the name's Dice, Dirk the Dice, and this is the Grognard Files podcast, talking bobbins about tabletop RPGs from back in the day. I'm coming live from my den under the stairs at Dirk Towers in Adlington, Chorley in the northwest of England. The podcast has been described as catnip for old gamers, and in my secret under the stairs base I have my great library of RPGs and my Grognard Files. Unusual one this time. It's in a sealed folder, marked for your eyes only. Only for you. You'll see what no one else can see. To my left is my ridiculous homemade shrine to the actress Caroline Munro. I'll just give it a tap. Ah yes, once again she returns as everyone's favourite winker, Naomi, the killer in a copter. Or at least I think it is. This time it's a line drawing with the eyes out of whack, for licensing reasons. Yes, this time we're looking at Victory Games' James Bond 007, role-playing in Her Majesty's Secret Service. Ba-na-ba-na! We've had another review on iTunes, which is always a boost and very gratefully received. This time it's from Mike Hobbs from the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. I happened across this podcast one day on Twitter and I thought I'd give it a quick listen, as I used to play RPGs in the 80s. I was hooked from the start. Over the past 2 weeks I listened to most of the back catalogue as well as supporting them on Patreon. I may have also made a few purchases of the games I used to own back in the day. Who knows, I might start playing RuneQuest again and head for the big rubble. In the meantime, I'll just break open another pack of hobnobs and carry on listening to this fabulous show. Thanks, Mike. And thanks to the profile of Meeples and Miniatures podcast, he sent a number of new listeners in our direction. Welcome to you all. I hope your wallet is ready to take a battering after listening to this podcast, as the James Bond 007 material is fairly readily available and very collectible, as many of the supplements came out in boxes with smart player handouts. Now, this is a big one. It's not long enough to split in two, and too long to be in one part. Either way, it's dissatisfying, so take your time. Don't operate heavy machinery whilst listening, and you should be okay. I'll be giving a brief potted history of the game before Judge Blythy, the resident rules lawyer, will join me to cast a critical eye over some of the innovations of the game. After that, we'll be doing an actual play. We've been playing the Goldfinger adventure to see how the game works, so we'll present some intense one-on-one goldfingering action for your listening pleasure. In the Starburst Memories section, we'll be looking at Bond movies, Bond villains, and how we can learn about the villains to improve our game. Also, we're doing a fanzine. You can get one if you sign up in the next couple of weeks. Listen to the final bit to find out more. Ramblers, let's get rambling.
Potted history.
The man seemed to realise that he was being watched. He looked up and gazed incurious at them for a moment. Then he reached for a briefcase on the chair beside him, extracted a newspaper and started to read it, his elbows propped up on the table. When the man had turned his face towards them, Bond noticed that he had a black patch over one eye. It was not tied with tape across the eye, but screwed in like a monocle. Otherwise he seemed a friendly middle-aged man with dark brown hair brushed straight back, and, as Bond had seen when he was talking to the patron, particularly large white teeth. He turned back to Vesper.
Really, darling, it was quite innocent.
It's character moments like this from Casino Royale that Jared Chris Klug broke down and rebuilt when he was considering the game design of James Bond 007. How could he represent Bond's instinct, his ability to read the situation and the threats around him? In the game, this became a sixth sense skill, an ability to have an edge over the non-player characters. In the late 70s, Klug was a theatre lighting designer, travelling with rock bands and theatre productions, as well as an enthusiastic gamer. He was in New York when he called into the open playtest at SPI, Simulation Publications Incorporated, and was talent spotted by games designer Eric Lee Smith, who offered him some freelance work, which led to him joining the payroll. His credits at SPI include Dragon Quest, one of our favourites, look out for a future GROGPod, and Universe RPG, a challenger to Traveller. When SPI dissolved, he worked for Victory, a subsidiary of wargames publisher Avalon Hill, who were keen to develop their RPG line. He suggested they work on a long-held idea for an espionage project. Top Secret was the only game in the spy space, and it didn't appeal to Klug because of its simulationist approach. His background in drama influenced the aesthetic of his game design. His training provided a set of tools that allowed him to break down situations and characters to understand the meaning and how they work. He suggested to his friend Bob Kern that it should be possible to develop an espionage game that was more about role-playing without having a wargame approach. They began developing the idea in 1982 with the target of Christmas 1983. Meanwhile, Victory were in discussions with the license holders for the films and novels of James Bond. To the apparent surprise of everyone, they agreed, with some caveats. Bob Kern was a keen Bond enthusiast, and he made sure that Klug's design matched the flavour of the setting, combining the grit of the novels with the glitz of the movies. The rules were packed with great mechanics to emulate situations that Bond finds himself in: gambling, chasing, hand-to-hand combat, the effects of fame, key allies and enemies, thrilling locations, gadgets and vehicles. On its release, it was a great success, a bestseller. The product line was supported by adventures based on characters and locations from the films: Dr. No, Live and Let Die, Octopussy and A View to a Kill. Apparently, Eon, the license owners for the films, were perplexed that the scenarios didn't follow the plot of the films. Bob Kern pointed out that if Goldfinger followed the same scheme as in the film, the players would merely head for Fort Knox, waiting for him to turn up. The adventures are really inventive and feature authentic-looking handouts stored within an official-looking MI6 internal envelope. The Games Master supplements were of high quality too. Thrilling locations provide off-the-shelf backdrops for scenarios such as a casino. The Villains supplement details some of the world-spanning organisations such as SMERSH, their key players and top assassins. Everyone's favourite was the Q manual, which featured gadgets and how to use them in the game. James Bond 007 was also supported by Avalon Hill's Heroes magazine, which featured design notes for the supplements as well as gadgets, etc. And suddenly, in 1987, the license was not renewed. No one's quite sure why, as the game was such a best-selling success. A Diamonds Are Forever supplement was in development, but was not completed as the licensees pulled the plug on new productions. Victory were allowed to sell the remaining stock, but they had to be redacted. The version I have is cut across the title page, and a black marker pen has crossed out the line, "Enter the Victory Games world of," as James Bond 007 was no more. The rules have been retrofitted, whatever that means, into Classified, a system that works across a number of genres and is available on Drive-Thru-RPG. You can pick up the old adventures on eBay as they crop up fairly regularly, priced around £20. As for Klug, well, he teaches game design in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he has a design credit on Chaosium's forthcoming RuneQuest Adventures in Glorantha. As you'll come to see, no one else has done so much to innovate the percentile dice resolution system as Chris Klug. Surely there must be an appetite for the revival of James Bond 007, maybe with the revival of the franchise and the resurgence of the hobby. The campaign starts here.
Judge Blythy, rules!
Welcome to the room of role-playing rambling to put James Bond 007 RPG in the dock. I'm joined by Judge Blythy. Hello, Blythy.
Hello, Dirk.
He's the man with the Golden Gavel, with a license to drill down into the finer parts of the game. So, before that, normally at this stage, Blythy, we put on our rose-tinted glasses, don't we? And look
We do,
back
yeah.
to the past of when we used to play the game. But we didn't play this one.
We didn't play it, and I know why we didn't play it, at least from my perspective.
Go on.
Well, I remember seeing it. I'm sure I saw it in Games Workshop in Manchester, even though I don't think it appeared in White Dwarf, did it?
No, he never.
But I'm sure I saw it in there, unless it's a fake memory. And I remember being put off by it because it was about the time when there was a lot of licensed stuff coming out. And I remember the Indiana Jones role-playing game where you played Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And there was this joke that you had to play Indiana Jones, or someone did, and they couldn't die. And I think there was a Doctor Who role-playing game where you played one of the Doctors, which all seemed a bit unappealing. You know, it wasn't quite Stormbringer. You didn't play in the world, you played the characters. And I remember looking at the James Bond game and thinking, oh, that'll just be another one of those games where you have to be James Bond.
Yeah.
And it just didn't appeal. And I kind of dismissed it out of hand.
Yeah. It didn't have quite the same profile as well, because as you say, it didn't appear in White Dwarf, and
No.
that's the well which we kept returning
It was.
to.
That's the famous conduit of role-playing, isn't it?
Yeah,
That
for us anyway.
All role-playing came through that.
If we didn't get an endorsement there, then
Yeah.
we,
Very brand conscious. Wasn't endorsed by White Dwarf. We didn't want to know.
yeah. The other thing is that I think because Avalon Hill always had a really terrible advertising, terrible marketing,
Yes.
and the way that they portrayed games was really, really poor.
Yeah.
Because we said about the Mercenary Spies and Private Eyes, you were instantly propelled into that world.
Yes.
So that was like a desirable thing. With the James Bond one, they were neither. You knew they were James Bond, but the illustrations, although the illustrations are all right, they're a bit like you might see on a fairground. You know, like a waltzer. It kind of looked like James Bond, but it didn't look like James Bond.
Like doing a waltzer. Is that Brad Pitt on that waltzer there?
Yeah.
But it doesn't quite look like him.
Yeah.
I think as well the cover looks like something O-level art student might do.
Yeah.
Copied from a James Bond poster badly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when we started this podcast, and listeners kept saying, "You must do James Bond. You must do James Bond RPG." A lot of people spent most of their youth playing this game. So we'll look at it. And what's your overall opinion? Looking at the rules?
Well, overall opinion is it is a great system. It's a great system and it's a great game, and it does capture the sort of essence of James Bond, doesn't it? And in a way that's kind of I look back, I'm reliving that moment in Games Workshop where I saw it on a shelf and thought, oh no, that looks rubbish.
Yeah.
Without even looking inside, I just thought, that looks rubbish, I bet you have to play James Bond. And now I regret that, because it is a great game.
Yeah. So we've played it, haven't we, recently? We've been playing the Goldfinger scenario. That was the pre-written scenario. I've been playing that in our lunch times when we can. And we have got it. What surprised me is your enthusiasm for it, because I think, as I said previously, you're not really taken with the espionage and thriller genre in quite the same way as I am, but you have been quite enthusiastic to play it.
Well, I think I'm enthusiastic because James Bond is, James Bond, is it espionage? Is it really? Is it a thriller? Is it really? No, they're action movies, aren't they? They're action movies. I mean, he's a spy. He's not really a spy, he's more of an assassin, isn't he? But they're more action movies, and I think the game captures that quite well, and that's sort of why it's enjoyable.
We've been accused of being very precious about the games that we cover, but I'm going to share your effusiveness about this game, because I loved it. I think it's good, and although we've never played it, its legacy has been felt in some of the games that we're playing now.
Definitely.
So, what are your top 3 rules?
Top 3 rules.
Yeah.
I struggled with this. I struggled to find three. Often when you ask me this question, I struggle to find three that I like. But I struggled to whittle it down to three.
Yeah.
With James Bond, because he's a very ingenious system, and has some really ingenious things in, which when you consider, and I think we need to set a bit of context here before we start talking about the rules. Because some of the things that impress me about it, people may think, well, so what? Such a game's got that, and this game's got that, and this game's got that. But this was 1983, wasn't it?
Yeah.
This is 1983. The things that are in games now are in James Bond. They're there, aren't they? In 1983.
Yeah. And I think it's partly down to the fact that Chris Klug, when he was designing it, went from a point of view of, right, how do I emulate the story?
Yes, absolutely. And that's where it kind of ties in with more modern role-playing games, which are trying to tell stories and narrative and be more cinematic. And that's why it sort of sits out to kilter with the games of the time, which were more about... It started to be more like a war game, weren't they?
Yeah.
Rather than a story. They're partly about stories, but...
Stop trying to evade the question. What?
All right, you're going to try and tie me down to three rules. All right.
Rules, yeah.
The three rules I've picked are hero points.
Hero points, okay.
Ease ratings.
Ease ratings.
Ease ratings. And weaknesses.
Weaknesses. Okay. So let's talk about hero points.
Okay.
So what are the concepts of hero points?
Well, concepts of hero points in James Bond these are points that you acquire, which you can then spend throughout the course of the game to, I think, re-roll things and offset more significantly.
Yeah.
Well, it's not so much a re-roll, but kind of give yourself advantageous conditions rather.
Yeah.
I think that's what you do with them. So you would, if Oddjob throws his hat at you, you can use a hero point to get conditions that are favourable. A strong wind, blow the hat out of the way.
Yeah. And it comes down to, we might go in a bit more depth with it, the quality of your results, isn't it? So it's a percentile-based system. So you're awarded hero points by having excellent quality results. So if you roll really low, you'll get awarded a hero point because you've done really well. Or the games master can award them at their discretion if you've acted in a particularly heroic way. So it's like the Benny system.
But again, what's really good about hero points is it's a good way, and this is what's great about the game, that all the rules kind of, this is why I struggled to get it down to 3 rules, because they all kind of intertwine and fit together quite nicely. What hero points do really well is they deal with the problem of guns in role-playing games.
Yes.
Because one of the problems with a gun, particularly at the time, again, 1983, was that guns are quite deadly. In real life, guns...
Really? That's a revelation.
In real life, guns... Let's just establish that. If you're shot with a gun in real life, you're in trouble, aren't you?
Yeah.
But that's a problem in a role-playing game, isn't it? Because you want a bit of shooting, like in a movie, but you don't want anyone to get killed apart from the bad guys. The kind of player character kind of mortality rate is quite high. So role-playing games, particularly at the time, had two ways of doing it. One is make sure no one gets hit, and Call of Cthulhu's guilty of this, isn't it? Guns just aren't that deadly. In Call of Cthulhu, you can be hit with a revolver and it does a D10 damage. That means almost every character in Cthulhu can survive being shot. And that seems ridiculous. But the reason they've done that, of course, is to make it not quite as deadly. So the mortality rate for player characters isn't quite as bad. But what hero points do in Bond, they allow you to offset the damage. So you can be shot, but you can lower the consequence by spending hero points. So it makes it more survivable. The bullets can start flying, and the bullets are deadly, but because you've got hero points, if you've got any, you can offset that. And I think that's a really ingenious way of dealing with that problem. Because what it's saying is, these weapons are deadly, but because this is a movie, or is played like a movie, you can offset that.
You can see a through line. So when you look at Top Secret and the way that it dealt with this kind of thing, like I said in the podcast when we covered Top Secret, it wants to be narrativist, but it's still got all the simulationist trappings, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So as an optional rule, they've got the fame and fortune points to do a similar thing, but it still doesn't seem quite satisfactory.
No, it's not as slick, and I think it doesn't. I think it was said at the time, it doesn't quite fit together that well, and doesn't all kind of make sense and click in the way that James Bond rules do.
In Mercenary Spies and Private Eyes, you've got the Megadeth luck saving roll, which is intended to do a similar thing, to give you an opportunity when the bullets are flying to avoid them. But
and I suppose that's what I mean about the thing about either with guns, people reduce the damage they do, Cthulhu style, or they do that, the Mega Death luck saving throw thing, which means you get a roll to avoid death.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is you fail the roll and die.
Yeah. But I think Mercenary Spies and Private Eyes is obviously built on a Tunnels and Trolls engine, so it's really deadly. It's still really deadly.
Yeah.
I think what hero points serve here is that it does give you that ability to do emulation, and there's some other little tweaks as well. So if you're above a certain strength, you've got an opportunity to shake off damage.
Yeah.
So when Oddjob gets hit in the face with a gold bullion bar, he can shake it off because he's strong enough. So there is that. There's that thing about that. I think it's good that NPC villains also get the opportunity to use survival points with their equivalent, because you do get that anticlimax, don't you? When the idea is to offset that anticlimax where you save up all your resources for the villain, and just go for it to eliminate them, and they're just gone in one blast. Yeah. The survival points give them a chance to a bit more resource to come back at you.
Yeah, they do, and you can see that you can see all that we've just talked about in so many modern role-playing games now, can't you?
Yeah.
I mean, that idea of a damage track and fate, and offsetting things in fate. 5th edition D&D does it with some of the big nasty monsters get kind of legendary actions where they can do things. They can just make a save. So the first 3 legendary actions, they can make a saving throw. So you cast a spell against a dragon, it can make the saving throw irrespective of, and it's the same thing, isn't it? Really, effectively, it's giving the big bad villain, the dragon or the Oddjob or the Scaramanga or the vampire, whichever game it is, that option as a games master of going, this is my big bad monster, big bad villain. They're not going to be able to defeat it straight off. They're not going to get that lucky roll and go, oh, he's dead. Oh, is he? That was a climactic scene, and you've just got him with a lucky shot because he's got survival points. Yeah. Equally, you've got hero points. Yeah. That shot to the head becomes a shot to the shoulder. Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah. And he's really, really clever. Really clever. And it might not sound clever to people listening because they're all familiar with that kind of thing being in more modern role-playing games, but 1983.
Yeah,
1983. I keep repeating that, 1983. There it is.
Next up is ease factor.
Ease factors. Yeah, ease ratings, ease factors. So in James Bond, tasks are given an ease rating, and there's a kind of cross-reference. It's a bit like a resistance table in RuneQuest, isn't it? Basic role-playing. So you look at your skill level or stat level, and you look at the ease rating or ease factor of the task, cross-reference it, and it gives you a percentage chance of doing it.
Yeah.
So the games master gives you an ease rating and allows a bit of flexibility in terms of the challenge. So I'm cheating a bit here because I'm picking on a few rules in one, but within ease ratings you've got degrees of success as well, haven't you? So a 00 agent doing something easy might have, according to the table, 150% chance of doing it, which at first glance seems silly. When you look at it, you think, well, that's a bit daft. But of course, you roll the percentile dice, and there's a degree. There's another table, isn't there, that gives a degree of success within that.
Yeah. It stands on the shoulders of RuneQuest in that, even though it's presented as a table, essentially it's a multiplication, isn't it, of an attribute.
Yes,
so
basically, yeah.
skills are presented as a figure that's a fifth, if you like, of what it should be. So instead of to get a percentage, you have to multiply them, and that's what the ease factor is. So a standard one will be 5, and then you can move it down on a scale depending on it. But it's the quality of the result that really matters. So if you get below half the result, then it's if you get over half the result or under it, it's adequate. And then there's like degrees up to excellent.
Yeah.
So it's like your critical or special attack, isn't it? But I think this works really well because it allows really good characters, so 00 agents, superior characters, to have a bit of jeopardy.
Bit of jeopardy, yeah, and also, it does do that, because there's that problem with basic role playing, that a percentage is a percentage is a percentage. So if you're 70% at doing something, you roll it, you've done it, or you've not. You've done it or you've not.
Yeah.
There's no qualitative thing. I mean, there were critical roles, but generally speaking, there was no qualitative thing. Whereas in actual fact, someone who was 90% at something, surely there's something between the 9% threshold for criticals and the 90. There should be some extra degrees of success or quality. And of course, what it also allows you to do, and this is amazing. 983, amazing. It allows opposed roles.
Yes.
It allows opposed roles. So you can go pit yourself against an NPC, and you can both succeed, but you look at the quality of that success against each other.
Yeah.
I mean, that is amazing, isn't it? It's amazing.
And it works really well in play, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So in our game, we had a game of golf.
Yeah, it's a Goldfinger. Yeah. A good RPG spoilt, isn't it?
But, I mean, I don't play golf. But we played the entire rounds, didn't we? Played 18 holes.
Yeah,
and it got quite tense,
didn't it? It got quite tense, yeah, because you both did it, but of course, varying qualities.
Yes.
So you both managed to get the ball in the hole in the end, but there was a different number of strokes, just like golf.
Yeah. Well, each hole was given an ease factor.
Yeah.
And then you had like the opposed.
It was an opposed roll, yeah.
And the other bit that works really well, because if that was in basic role playing, in RuneQuest or in Call of Cthulhu, the expectation would be that you'd have a golf skill, and you as a character would only have that as a basic.
Yes.
So it would be a basic plus whatever modifiers you had. Yeah.
Mm.
The way it works in Bond is, because it's based on your attribute of dexterity. Goldfinger played golf. It was in his things.
Yeah.
So you had a penalty. So you had a -3 on your ease factor.
Yeah.
But because you had a good dexterity, you still had a fighting chance.
Yes.
You were fairly evenly matched because you're a double
You're
agent.
a double agent, yeah, of course you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're always better than your opponents.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is that thing. Like I say, if it was basic role playing or anything else, you would have, back in the day, we would have been scratching our heads about how to do it, because we would have said, right, okay, you both got a golfing skill. I mean, mind you, let's say that. I think when we were 12 or 13, we wanted to kill monsters, not play golf. We'll set that aside for now. Set that aside. You would have rolled the golf skill and both succeeded and gone, I don't know what to do then. Or both failed and gone, I don't know what to do with that either. It's a draw. But, of course, opposed rolls are the answer. There's degrees of success.
Yeah.
I think it's important to mention about at this point that you don't have to play 00 agent either, do you?
No, you don't.
I mean, if you're 00 agent, you're pretty good, but you can play rookie, so you don't have to play a Bond-style character.
The other thing about ease factors as well comes down to chases, and I think this works really well, is the chase rules, because that's a bit that sometimes role-playing games struggle with, and there's a whole chapter in the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu to do with chases. and this deals with it in a really interesting way. I think the way that it deals with action is interesting as well. So this is related because if you're the fastest, then you have to declare what you're doing in a turn, the last. Yeah. So it has a statement of intent round, so you have to say what you're doing in a round. But if you're the fastest, you get to hear what everybody else is doing first. Yeah. Which I think is really good. So you act first, but you know what everybody else is going to do. And I think that's good, because sometimes when you have initiative systems, being the last...
You being the last can be
an
a strange type of advantage, can't it?
Yeah.
If you're not in the thick of battle and not being hit first, it's good to go last because you can see what's happened.
And way that it uses ease factors in chases is that the games master and the PCs will bid for the manoeuvre they're going to make. So you say you're driving, and you'll say which ease factor you're going to use, and the lowest gets to decide whether they are going to lengthen the gap or close the gap.
Yeah.
So if you went for a really low ease factor, you still have to roll on it, but you get to choose on it, and the advantage could be felt that way. That bidding system appears in Night's Black Agents.
Yeah, it does.
That chase bid system. But I think Ken Hite acknowledges the fact that it was nicked. But you can see that the innovations was there in 1983. This was
1983. It's 1983. Believe it or not. Yeah, it is. And again, I remember at the time. I know there may have been games around that did these things, but the games we played, chases were always a problem, weren't they? Because it's just that RuneQuest movement 8, whatever it is, 8 or something. Well, I don't know, what do we do here with chase? It's all a bit awkward. Yeah. And yet, in actual fact, chases should be exciting, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
If you decide to run away from a big horrible monster, that should be an exciting thing, because the big horrible monster try and catch you.
Yeah.
You know, the villains in the car in James Bond, they're going to try and catch you, aren't they? Some of the greatest scenes in James Bond are chases, aren't they? Where he's being chased. You know, Spy Love Me, the helicopter.
I have to say that this ease factor, the way that it deals with percentages, is brilliant.
Yeah,
it is brilliant. Weaknesses.
Okay.
So
final rule that
final
I like. Rule. In character creation, which we'll talk about in a minute, you can pick weaknesses. So Bond's weakness, it works on the principle that Bond's weakness in the films and the books is women. So he's a
women.
He falls for women, doesn't he? So femme fatales kind of sometimes get one over on him slightly.
Yeah.
But there are in the game there's a range of other weaknesses, phobias, all sorts of things that you can pick. And again, 1983. This idea of choosing weaknesses, the idea that your character has weaknesses and failings, kind of quite a radical idea at the time, wasn't it? Because most role-playing games, that was the last thing you wanted. Weakness is a part of it. You're encouraged to have certain failings that the games master can exploit and develop as part of your narrative.
And the incentive at character creation stage is that you get more points to allocate on your skills. So if you take on one or more weakness, you get a few hundred extra points to allocate amongst your skills. And
I do think again it is a really, really interesting and innovative rule.
The other thing that it brings to it, which is something that we kept cropping up when we were playing, is by having individual character weaknesses, it means that you don't fall into the trap of playing Bond.
Yes, because that is a slight problem. If you're playing 00 Agent, you I think at various points we kept referring to my character as Bond, but he's not. He wasn't James Bond. He's
because we didn't want that, did we?
We didn't want that.
No.
But there is that problem with it, that you do end up thinking, you're playing James Bond. Even, despite what I said right at the beginning about dismissing it, because I thought, well, you know, I don't want to play James Bond. I want to play my own character. But actually, I did end up playing James Bond.
But to have a selection of weaknesses that
and not like James Bond. Yeah, because he's almost defined that weakness with women is a defining feature of Bond, isn't it? So picking, I mean, you can pick that one, but picking something else, it does kind of move you or positions your character away from Bond, you know.
So we've talked about the things that you liked. What about things that you don't like?
There's not much I don't like about it, to be honest. But one thing I did find slightly tedious was the character creation system. Because it's a points-based system. You get a lot of points.
Well, I think as a double A, you have the choice of being a rookie, an agent, or a double O agent. Yeah. As a double O agent, you get 9,000 points to distribute.
It's a lot of points. Yeah. And it gets a bit boring. You don't know the upper limits of things. So you think, well, what do I do with this 9,000 points now? Do I put loads and loads of points on some things and not much on others? Do I divvy them up evenly? And I think at the end of the process, I was just going, look, how many have I got left? Divide that. How many skills have I got? Right, I've got another 15 skills. Let's divide that by 15. Yeah, let's just bung 25 on each. To hell with it. So it gets a little bit dull, I think, because there's nothing wrong with point systems, but it's a lot of points to distribute, and that I found that a little bit.
I think one of the difficulties with it is that although it gives you fields of experience, so this is an optional rule. You can have a set of skills or abilities that you don't have to roll for. They're just within your field of knowledge. So if you've been in the Royal Navy, for example, you'll have awareness of political science, which I think your character does. Yeah. But it doesn't really give you any guidance on what level you should set your skills at.
Exactly. So you just unless you've played the game, I mean, the more you play it, the more you'd understand, I suppose, what is a good level and what isn't. But you do sort of think, I don't know what the upper end of things is or the lower end of things. Yeah. It doesn't seem instinctive. So when you get a game that says stats range between 3 and 18, you think, okay, 18 is brilliant, 3 is dreadful, I know where I'm standing. But it doesn't really do that. The double O agents, you can allocate a lot of points to your stats, can't you?
Yes, yeah.
Whereas rookies, you don't get as many. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think it's just that problem of being awash with points to divvy up, and you think, oh, I don't know, should that one be 20 or should it be 30? I can make it 30 because I've got lots of points, but does that really matter? Oh, I don't know. Oh God, you drove me a bit bonkers.
Whenever we've had points allocation, you've not liked it. You don't like it in Knights Black Agents, like the gumshoe thing either. I think you and Eddie got a bit worn down by, right, how many have we got left and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you do. I think you do. It's that thing of agonising over it, and yet at the same time not really knowing whether it makes such a big difference.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? 45. I'll tell you what, I'll have it at 45%. I don't know.
So one of the reasons why you ended up with a lot of points is because you played a double O agent.
Yes.
And we should point out that it is really good for one-on-one play.
Yeah.
Which is always a difficulty, isn't it, in these kind of games, in spy games, because very rarely would you get a team doesn't feel right sometimes when you're infiltrating somewhere.
Yeah.
One-on-one play works really well with this, and it's a pity we didn't find it in 1983 because of all those times.
Absolutely, because you do. I think when you play it, you think it's a game, oddly, that wouldn't work with 4 or 5 players, would it? I don't know how you would play it with 4 or 5, because as agents, secret agents, they don't go around in groups of 4 or 5, do they? They tend to operate as in solitary, or maybe another player. You could probably stretch it to 2, but even when you get 3, you're pushing it a bit, aren't you?
Well, look at the adventure that we did, the Goldfinger one. There's a requirement to play golf with Goldfinger.
Yeah.
So while you're playing golf with Goldfinger, what's everybody else doing?
What's everyone else doing? There's 5 of you. If there was another player, you could say, all right, both of you are going to play golf. But certainly if you had 4 or 5 players, you're right. What would they be doing?
Yeah.
It doesn't quite work. But you're absolutely right. Back in the day when it was just me and you, and we couldn't find anyone to play with, it would have been a great game, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Just goes to show that don't judge a role-playing game by its cover. I think is the message there, isn't it? I dismissed it at a tender age of whatever I was then, 13, 14. And really, I should have picked it up and bought it because it would have been a great game. It is a really good system, really well put together, innovative,
Influential.
Yeah, absolutely influential. You just read it and you see modern role-playing games springing from it. Weaknesses. It's like trouble in Fate, isn't it?
Yes.
Exactly the same thing, really. Pick a weakness. The same way in Fate, you always pick a trouble, don't you? A problem. Yeah. Very, very good game.
Well, we talked about the theory. We don't normally do this, but let's see what it's like in play.
In practice.
So here's an extract from one of our play sessions. I'll see you on the other side, Blythe.
Goldfinger, he's the man with the Midas touch, a spider's touch, such a cold finger.
Okay, that was Shirley Bassey there for our the Welsh division of the Grog Squad. I hope they enjoyed that. And we're going to do a bit of actual play. Okay, Blythe?
Okay, I'm ready. Actual play.
And this is actually our second session of James Bond 007, Goldfinger. Do you want to introduce your character to begin with?
Yes, he's Jason Forge. He's 003. He's 003. I picked 003, hoping that 003 in the movies, 003 wouldn't have been one of the Bonds that's referred to as being killed. But he is.
Yes.
I've since found out he is. I think it might be the Living Daylights. There's always one 00 agent referred to in M's office as being killed, being found dead, and then they bring Bond in to sort it out. I suspect this may go the same way. They're going to need to get 007 in, aren't they?
So, you're a member of the Royal Navy, weren't you, prior to...
He was Special Forces. Special Forces. A bit like Bond himself. He was a Navy. Wasn't he?
I think we said that he's actually part of a secret organisation within the Secret Service.
He's a secret within a secret within a secret.
A group in the upper echelons who were trying to revive Room 39 from the Admiralty. So that was actually dissolved in the 60s when everything was centralised.
Yes.
But this is set in the early 80s, and there's a group of people within the Navy who have set up this, and you've been monitoring Soviet activity prior to getting your 00 status.
I've been given the job of finding out what Auric Goldfinger is up to.
Yeah, that's
what
right.
His nefarious plans are, and I'd gone to his country club, hadn't I, for a round of golf with him, which I think I'd won by cheating, much like Bond does in the film, actually.
Yeah.
And I think he was off to South Africa, wasn't he? Doesn't he have...
Yes.
He has gold mines in South Africa, doesn't he? And he was off to them, and I think my plans were to follow him there.
Yeah. So Moneypenny had found out that there was actually a chartered flight where he was taking his Rolls Royce and his entourage, and it was the pilot was one Ms. P. Galore.
P. Galore, yes.
And
well, of course she is.
Yeah, so you've been asked by this Colonel Martin Smithers from the Bank of England to investigate Goldfinger's activities, because it would take a particular interest in monitoring new gold mines at the Bank of England because of the way that the exchange rate is set through their gilts, etc. And so they're conscious of this activity, and M has suggested that there may be more criminal activity, because if you remember, they'd sent a member of Scotland Yard on his tail.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And he's been killed, hasn't he?
He has been killed. Along with his associate, Joe Masterson.
Yes.
Who was a former personal assistant of Goldfinger, who was killed by being smothered in gold paint. Okay.
Probably looks good, that, but seems a rather ineffective way of trying to kill somebody.
Yeah.
But there you go.
I don't know what the role would be, but
the role to kill someone with gold paint, there'd be several roles. What's your attack with a paintbrush?
So this is you're heading for Johannesburg.
Yeah.
And
have I got my car? Is it DB3?
Yeah, your DB5 actually.
DB5.
DB5
right.
with all its accessories
Yeah.
is being taken to South Africa at enormous taxpayers' expense.
Yes.
For this mission. What's your intentions as you go into the bustling city of Johannesburg? What do you want to find out first?
Do I know where his gold mines are? It's a legitimate open business, isn't it?
You've got a contact in the CIA, Felix Leiter, and
Yes.
he can put you in touch with handlers within Johannesburg, CIA handlers within, so you can get some intel.
Yeah,
All right,
I'll do that first then.
You put in touch with a woman by the name of Colmy Andile. Colmy Andile.
Call me
Andile.
and dial.
Yeah.
Call me and dial.
Yeah, that's her name. Colmy. I think it's a good Bond name. I thought it was a
Call
really...
me and dial.
Yeah.
Go on.
And she arranges to meet you
Okay.
at the Johannesburg Planetarium. So she enters quite a striking looking woman, power dress, 80s power dress.
Yeah. I think in true Bond style, he should try and charm her, shouldn't he? I think we've got seduction. You're not trying to seduce her, but I think he would try and charm her, perhaps.
So you're going to what's your seduction rating?
Seduction rating is 17.
17. Oh, you
17.
charmer.
Well, it's one of his lowest ratings. Actually, he's not very charming. But no, 17 seduction.
That's quite good. So I'll say at this early stage, so make a first impression. How are you going to approach it? I don't want you to seduce me, but how would you approach? How are you going to approach?
I'm certainly not. I wouldn't seduce you in an actual play that's going to be broadcast. Leave that for private moments. No, call me and dial.
I spent ages coming up with that name. Go on.
You come up with that name?
Yeah.
You've come up with that name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Call me.
Call me. Is it spelt?
Don't worry about that.
Oh, well,
What's your-
just... Oh dear. A code name, a code word, I don't know. The stars look particularly beautiful tonight. It's a planetarium, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
That's what he's going to say.
Okay. So she kind of sits in the row before you, and above you, they're kind of running the film, and it's kind of dark in there. The constellation of Orion. I think so. You're gonna whisper.
I should whisper that in her ear. Yeah.
The stars look
Particularly beautiful.
I'll give you an ease factor 10 then.
Okay.
On your seduction.
Ease factor 10 against my. So on this table, I've got 17.
Yeah.
There's a 170% chance.
Okay.
But
there you go.
It's
the
not as
quality.
simple as that, is it?
That's the quality of
It's
the
the quality of it. Oh, 10. 10.
So that's
She wants to marry me.
that's excellent.
She's all starry-eyed.
She is starry-eyed. She get the side of her mouth kind of gives a little upturn. I've heard of your charms, Mr. Forge. What is it that you want to know?
Ulrich Goldfinger. What do you know about him?
And she goes on to explains that he has opened up a mine in the outskirts of Johannesburg. About 3 months ago, they started to drop the mine, and she's got contacts within, and there's a certain degree of frustration in the Chamber of Mines that he doesn't seem to be cooperating.
Okay. In what sense?
Well, normally they would send their inspectors to look at it,
right. Okay.
and he hasn't allowed them to go there, and they've insisted on it. and she says a name. Lord Justly, who's one of the directors of the Chamber of Mine.
He's been secretive about what he's up to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just do a field of experience. You've got that political. Yeah.
I've got a political science as one of his fields of experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't need to roll for
Okay.
field of knowledge. So when you hear that name of Lord Justly, you realise that he has got connections with the Bank of England. So
Okay. Yeah.
so clearly,
There's something odd about it. He's keeping this, in essence, this gold mine. He's not letting people in. He's not being transparent and open in the way that one would imagine, which suggests he's got something to hide, doesn't it? Is that all she knows?
she also said that he's caused some upset locally because he hasn't recruited anybody to work there from the local population, that he's using his own people.
It's not one idea on my head. I was thinking maybe trying to get a job there. That is strange, then, isn't it? That suggests even more that he's got something to hide. What does she think? Does she have any idea of what she thinks he's trying to hide? Does she have any theories? Are there any theories knocking about that she's heard?
The image clicks and it starts to show above your head the picture of the formation of the Earth, the molten core, and the Hulse planet suite.
Yes.
And she said until she was contacted, she knew of Ulrich Goldfinger because of his reputation and his business interest in the US, but she didn't realise that he moved into South Africa. Do you want to progress the seduction? Do you want to what kind of level do you want to take this to?
Well, he's not. No, the thing is, he's not James Bond, is he? He one of his weaknesses, actually, he's got a moral code. So I don't think, I don't think he wouldn't seduce her, would he?
No, just going to keep it business-like.
Yeah, he wouldn't. He's trying to charm her to get something out of her, but there it is on the character sheet, moral code, honour. So I don't think he is like James Bond, is he?
Okay. She kind of gives you her number.
Okay.
Where she can be contacted in case you have any difficulties.
Yes. Okay. I think a bit of surveillance is in order. Let's see if we can get close to this gold mine and see what's going on.
So how are you going to approach it? Are you going to take the DB5?
Oh, of course he is. Yeah, the least conspicuous car in South Africa. He's going to take the DB5. Yes, he is, because that's what these people do. He's going to take that and get a map, buy a map, figure out where the gold mine is, drive up there, binoculars, that kind of thing. Go kind of mid-afternoon, and then if there's nothing much going on, he might stay into the night and see what's happening at night.
Okay, well, you conceal the DB5 off the main road, climb to get like a vantage point to where you can see it. It's signposted. There's been no attempt to conceal it. There's like a road that's been built within the last.
It's a gold mine.
It's a gold mine.
Gold mine, yeah. Okay.
And what you can see is it's in a valley. You can see like a cliff face in which 3 entrances have been created, and from the entrances you can see that there are rail, obviously bringing trucks of things. But the whole place, the whole compound, there's like several buildings, 2 large buildings that the tracks seem to go into, which are surrounded by mounds of rubble. So whatever they're extracting, it's around there. You can see gas cylinders, like big gas cylinders, mounted. And to the other side, it looks like longer buildings, probably living quarters. It looks like a garage for vehicles with petrol pumps outside, gas pumps outside, and near to the main gate, because the whole place is surrounded by 2 parallel fences. Chain link fences, about 50 feet high, and you can see that there's speakers on each post, and at night they must have like floodlights. They must floodlight this area. And there's a main gate, and near the main gate, looking very incongruous amongst the prefabricated building, for English cottage. For all intents and purposes, it could be from Herefordshire. You know, it's kind of a
yes, right, yeah.
You know, it's been built. Particularly.
Is the Rolls Royce parked outside?
There's no sign of the Rolls Royce, but what you can see at the moment, we've got through the screen, you can see those like two like looking through binoculars.
Yeah.
You can see that is patrolled by guards. Do you want to do a perception roll?
I think you suggested it. I do.
I'm going to give you an ease factor 3 for this.
So perception's 14, ease factor 3.
Just for the distance that you're doing.
Oh yeah, that's quite difficult. That's 42% chance.
Yeah, because you're some distance away from the place. So let's see whether you can pick up.
Oh, 29.
29. So that's what was
42.
42.
Yeah.
29. So that's an acceptable result.
It's acceptable to me. 42% chance.
And from that acceptable result, you can see that the guards are Korean.
Okay.
And they seem to be armed with Uzis.
Okay. Is there any way, I'm just looking at my skills here, I mean, I've got science as a skill. Is there any way of ascertaining whether this looks like a legitimate gold mine, as in the structure of it, the setup, the rubble, the gas cylinders? Does it look like a gold mine as opposed to something that they're pretending is a gold mine, but there's this nonsense to what's going on, if that makes sense? You know, is there a way of perhaps doing a roll to check, you know, whether it looks kosher?
Okay, what's your science at?
My science is 20. Whether that will cover, I don't know whether that would cover mining practices. I don't know.
Yeah,
I've got a demolition skill as well. But
I'll give you science. To as a role to see whether, you know, everything you can see in front of you. So this scene you can see in front of you, does it add up to a legitimate
gold mine? Yeah. All right. There's 20 my skill in that.
And I'm going to say it's an ease factor 5, so you've got a good chance of doing it.
100%.
100%.
But obviously there's a degree of success, isn't there, with it?
Yeah.
Okay. 38.
A good result. So everything about it seems kosher on things. So the rubble piles probably showed that, you know, it's rock taken from the mine.
Yeah.
And these look like refineries. So these two larger buildings where the carts go into,
They're kind of sifting out the gold.
they're sifting out the gold. They're kind of long, so that would indicate to you that, you know, what they're doing is smelting things. However, there's something unusual about the one furthest to the north.
But the larger of the two.
Yeah, the larger of the two. There's something not quite right about it.
And how many people are on site?
From what you can see, there's about 7 or 8. From what you can see.
Oh, right.
But there's evidence there that there's a lot
could be more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are the fences electrified? Anything like that?
I'll let you do another perception check to see if there's any. So you're looking specifically for clues to see.
Yeah, to see whether the fences are electrified or whether you can just cut through them if you know. They're wire fences, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh, go on. Okay, what's the ease factor?
I'd say it's a 5 because you know you've got binoculars.
70% chance.
70% chance.
29.
29. You're doing very well.
You do very well now. This is always the way, isn't it? Till the bullets start flying really badly.
And you can see that this outer perimeter fence. So there's two fences. The outer perimeter fence it's kind of got covered in foliage. It's got ivy growing up the side of it, which might be useful for concealing yourself. as you approach it, but you can actually see that there are hazard signs saying that it is electrified.
Okay. Tricky.
So what's your plan?
I think I want to get in there when night falls, but that's just the electric fence, isn't it? That's the problem. Come on, Forge, think.
You're a double O agent.
I'm a double O agent, but it's an electrical fence.
Have you got electronics?
I've got it, yeah, I think I might have actually. Yes, I have. 18. Yeah, is there a way of kind of short circuiting it? There must be, mustn't there? Of course there is. It's James Bond. What am I doing? Sorry, I apologise. I defaulted to the real world then, thinking, oh, that's a bit of a bummer, isn't it? There's an electric fence. No, I'll with a view to diffusing the electric fence, short circuiting it, cut my way through when night falls.
You're going to wait till nightfall?
Yes, let's do it. Put the black roll neck on.
Yes, of course.
Of course.
A bit of boot polish on your face?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Just
conceal yourself.
Set the look off properly.
A black woolly hat?
Black woolly hat. I think I'll stop at the duck on my head. Like in, is it?
It is floodlit, this
Okay.
place. They've got lights. Yeah.
I'll go to the fence and try and diffuse it. Diffuse it? Short circuit it? Electrified
So
fence.
you can just hear the insects and the cicadas. So you kind of move over the
So I've got my gun. I've got my gun on me. And I've got some wire cutters and electrical stuff for.
Silencer on your gun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'll try and
You come to the
short circuit the.
So you can see that there's several wires. Ones that control the lights, ones that control the alarm system,
Yeah.
and ones that control the fencing. Okay, so what are you going to do?
Disable the fence. Disable the electricity.
Okay,
And cut through the two. Cut through, and I suppose check for traps. But I'm going to have a look at the land between the two fences, as if there's nothing nasty there.
yeah.
They've not
Okay.
put a minefield in it or something like that.
Okay.
Try and give that a quick look. As I cut through the first fence, slip through, and then just look at the ground between where I am and the next fence, the second fence.
Okay.
Just.
Do an electronics roll to see whether you successfully disarm the fence.
Oh no!
And
What?
it's going to be an ease factor 3.
3?
Yeah. So again, it's
Gone
the
off
same.
this game. That's only a 54% chance.
Yeah.
Oh god!
So you've got your electronics kit and you're going to diffuse it.
96. Do you know what? If I tried to seduce what's you call me and dial, you should slap my face. I've been fine with it, but now I'm going to be electrocuted.
Power surge. And some of the lights burst, some of the floodlights around this area.
Okay.
I'm going to roll a perception roll to see whether they spot you.
All right. Do I get anything to offset it? Am I think that's stealth or stealth?
Yeah, you
I've
can
got
do
stealth 24.
Yeah, well, let's match.
Yeah.
Your
Matched out. Yeah. My
yeah.
stealth.
So you
24.
roll first,
Okay.
and so this is like an opposed roll.
Okay.
So depending on your success.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to say it's an ease factor 5.
So
Actually, no, I'm going to give you more than that. I'm going to give you ease factor 6 because you've taken the trouble to find a bit of a blind spot there.
yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. So 144% chance. So
Yeah.
what do I want? Lower. I want lower, don't I?
Yeah,
The lower the better.
lower the better, yeah. Because it depends on...
Oh, 96 again.
96.
Again?
Okay, it's still a success.
But obviously you've got to offset it against there.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, and I'm going to conceal this.
Okay.
Okay. So the lights have burst. Are you going to continue cutting through? Oh no, you can't because you've not. It's still electrified. You can have another
It's
go.
electrified. I think I'll have another go.
Yeah, have another go at doing it.
Yeah.
So you don't know whether they've been alerted to it.
Oh, 07, yes.
07.
Yes, yes.
So you found this.
Okay,
It was the red wire.
It was the red wire, not the green wire. Always is, isn't it?
That's an excellent result.
Thank you very much.
Okay. You managed to short it and managed to de-electrify both fences.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And what I'll do, when I'm through, I shall head towards the larger of the two buildings, the one that looks suspicious.
Okay. You're in.
Jason Forge discovered that the mine was phony, a front for Goldfinger's smuggling operation, and a dastardly plan to contaminate South African gold seams with radiation, thereby increasing the scarcity and the value of his own gold collection.
Starburst Memories. And this is the part of the show where we reflect on the influence of books, TV and movies on our gaming. I've got Blythy with me in Dirk Tower's purpose-built cinema. He's eating on some nachos and licking on his cheesy fingers. Hello, Blythy.
Hello, Dirk.
Now, let's talk about Bond, because Bond is like an essential part of our childhood. It's it was built into the rituals, family rituals, wasn't it? So not only the big blockbuster in the summer, but on Boxing Day, you know, everybody would sit around the TV and watch reruns of Doctor No.
It stems from an era when there was nothing on TV of any interest. So James Bond was a high point, wasn't it?
Yeah. So what's your earliest memory of Bond filming?
The first one I genuinely remember enjoying and kind of understanding what was going on, I think, was Live and Let Die. But prior to that, I remember watching James Bond films and not knowing what was going on.
Yeah.
I was a bit too young. I remember watching like Thunderball or You Only Live Twice, that kind of thing, on the TV and enjoying it because it was spies and car chases and people being shot, but not really knowing what the hell was going on.
Well, it's the same now, isn't it? I mean,
well,
you've seen Quantum of Solace.
I've seen Quantum.
What's happening?
There's nothing much has changed, but I suppose Live and Let Die was the first one where I kind of grasped what was going on, to at least to a greater or lesser degree. Whereas prior to that, at Doctor No, I remember thinking, what's the one with the volcano and the base in the volcano? Is that You Only Live Twice?
Yeah, I think it is.
I remember thinking that was great as a kid, where they all go into the base and have this big fight, don't they? But I remember thinking, I was doing about 6 or 7 years old, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, I used to, in the same way that Doctor Who was a big thing for you, wasn't it? You were a big Doctor Who. Bond has always been part of my kind of, staple of...
that's why we have to do podcasts on it.
Yeah,
we won't do one on Doctor Who, will we? No, we won't.
So sometime we might do,
but
we
won't.
But it's part of my DNA, and see, I remember seeing The Spy Who Loved Me at the cinema when it came out.
I think I saw it at the cinema now. I think that might have been the first one I saw at the cinema because there was a big... there was a big fuss about it, wasn't there? And I remember having the Lotus car, a toy car, which was fired missiles. Kept losing the missiles, you know.
They were quite volatile.
They were better than real missiles. Kim Jong-un could learn a thing or two from those cars.
Take me eye out. But I remember coming back from watching that film, and I must say it came out in 77, I think, so I was 9, something like that. Yeah. And I remember producing my own booklet, my own pass, with my license to kill. Yeah. And I kind of held it up in school. I think I scared a few people because my dad used to have. My dad used to
still
have
do
the paperbacks. The paperbacks, and it used to have the thing of, it gives you a license to kill, and I copied it. I like to think that was my first player handout. It was quite an authentic.
I remember you did have the books, didn't you? The novels.
Yeah.
And, you'd read a few.
Yeah, I had an unhealthy interest in it.
Unhealthy interest.
But anyway, so listeners have told us that in the past. They've enjoyed the AD&D, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, episode where we had a spell off,
we
had a monster off,
and
now we're going to have a villain off.
Okay. Actually, Villanoff.
Villanoff.
That sounds like a Bond villain.
It does.
Villanoff.
It does, yeah. They always have names like that, don't they? And it always begs the question, doesn't it? That did they become bad, the villains?
So we're given a name
Because
like
they're giving it like Goldfinger.
Yeah, it's called Goldfinger.
He's obsessed with gold.
Yeah.
He's called Goldfinger. So, was he named Goldfinger and they thought, I'm going to be obsessed with gold?
Yeah.
Or did he change his name by default?
To Goldfinger.
Yeah,
because he's obsessed with gold. Yeah, was he born? There's no suggestion he's changed his name, is there?
No.
I don't think there's any suggestion he's changed his name.
Yeah.
He's called Goldfinger.
It's like Trump, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trump, he owns a load of casinos. He's got an obsession with gold, weird blonde hair, and I bet he cheats at golf.
Yeah. To be fair, the world is now run by Bond villains. I mean, Donald Trump's like a Bond villain. Kim Jong-un's like a Bond villain. Putin's a bit like a Bond villain. We're run by Bond villains now, you know. And actually, we're going to discuss Bond villains, but it's fair to say those real Bond villains are all slightly more preposterous than real Bond villains.
Yeah. So, let's have a look at these then. So, the way we're going to work this is we're going to pit one Bond villain against another. So, who are you going to play? Who's the first card you're going to play?
Well, I don't know if this is a wise choice actually, but I'm going to pick Stromberg from The Spy Who Loved Me. Stromberg is one of the finest examples of a Bond villain, as is the one who came after him. I think it's Drax in Moonraker.
Yeah.
Because he raises the issue that is hovering in the background of almost all Bond villains. Not all, but most of them. What motivates them? Stromberg, he lives in an undersea paradise, doesn't he? With Marilyn Monroe in a bikini by his side. And yet he wants to destroy the world. I can tell you, if you put me in an undersea paradise with Marilyn Monroe in a bikini, the outside world could go to hell. I don't care. I don't bothered. Why does he want to destroy it? You know, it's like, oh, well, what I want to do is flood the world and wipe it out and create an undersea kingdom. What for? You've already got one. You've already got an undersea kingdom.
But is not so in Bond films, the villains or super villains drive the narrative.
Well, they do, yeah. But it always begs the question if there's just a degree of stupidity to what they're doing. So Drax is the same in Moonraker. He's got a space station. Well, he's invented artificial gravity as well in that space station. No one else has done that, to my knowledge. But there you go. And he's done all this so that he can poison the planet and then repopulate it with his perfect kind of people that he's put on his space station. And you think, well, what are you bothering for?
But is it not the case though that because it's kind of an arms race of villainy? So because and you find this with Marvel superhero films, don't you? That it's got to, the stakes have got to be very, very high.
Yeah.
And for some games it's like that, isn't it? So Masks of Nyarlathotep, which is going to be redone for the 7th edition.
Yeah.
That has a James Bond ending, the spoiler alert.
Yeah, it does, yeah. But
to kind of give you that feeling that the stakes are very, very high.
Well,
and that...
Yeah. It does, but I mean, we've discussed this, haven't we, with Call of Cthulhu. I still struggle with what these cultists are trying to achieve. I mean, they summon a monster, a bit like Stromberg. They summon a monster, and the monster eats a few of them, and the rest of them go, "Oh, job well done, brilliant." Oh no! Even if you're mad, the idea they're just mad. They have seen several of them eaten by a monster. Do you know what I do? Even if I was mad, not do it again. I'll steer clear of the monsters.
Well, let me pit Stromberg against mine, which is one of my favourites. One of my favourite Bond films. Francisco Scaramanga.
Oh yeah.
From The Man with the Golden Gun.
Yeah. With his third nipple.
With his third nipple. Great charisma. Great charismatic performance. A great charismatic villain.
Yeah.
And they're hard to pull off in game, aren't they? level. I don't, believe it or not, I don't have the same level of charisma as Christopher Lee.
Really?
I don't have a third nipple.
That's what you say.
But what I like about Scaramanga, I think, how he's useful for a game, is that he's introduced in the concept of a game, isn't he? So he is a sword for hire, the best assassin in the world, and to keep himself on his toes and to keep his skill level up, he goes into his fun house, a maze operated by Knick Knack, his dungeon master. He's dungeon master.
Dungeon master, yeah.
And he invites assassins from around the world to make sure that he's still the best, still the top. The Death Trap Dungeon, the villain who kind of invites you to come.
Well, it's the personal element of it, and I think in a role-playing game that's sometimes a better thing to motivate player characters, because the Stromberg effect of they just want to bring about the end of the world. It is motivating, I suppose, because it pushes players into a position of, well, if they want to bring about the end of the world, we need to stop them, because there's no way of avoiding being affected by the end of the world. But in some ways, the personal thing is probably better, isn't it? It's smaller scale. In many ways, The Man with the Golden Gun is James Bond's smallest scale adventure, isn't it? Because it is more personal.
And I think it goes back to my thing about the arms race of increased villainy. He is a kind of low-key villain.
And I think it wasn't. I think I'm right in saying it wasn't
a big hit.
Wasn't a big hit, was it? As a Bond film. In some ways, that's why The Spy Who Loved Me goes in the completely opposite direction, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of, maybe that's where the Stromberg effect comes from. If it's not a hit because this personal rivalry doesn't really capture the audience's imagination, so we'll go for something completely off the wall, some crazy man who wants to flood the world and kill everybody. Maybe that's why that happened, I don't know. But I think from a gaming perspective, if you can get personal rivalry between a villainous NPC and player characters, that's really kind of magic of one of the magical things of role-playing games, isn't it? Where you've got player characters who feel an actual personal dislike and rivalry.
So how would you manufacture rivalry like Scaramanga? Maybe he's always one step ahead. So when they're given missions, maybe he's already there and done it.
And in some ways, I tell you what is kind of quite revealing about The Man with the Golden Gun is that James Bond knows who he is from the word go. So there's that scene, isn't there, where there's the golden bullet delivered or something, or there's a golden bullet, and Bond knows who Scaramanga is.
Yeah.
And also from the word go realises the peril he's in, because Scaramanga has kind of targeted him and he's after him. And that, from a role-playing perspective, that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because it's the villain who's villainous but not there.
Yeah.
The best villains in role-playing games are often they're present, but they're not present. You know what I mean?
It's the menace of them.
It's the menace of them. And Scaramanga does that, doesn't he? He has that kind of menace that he's a shadowy figure. No one knows what he looks like. Whereas, I suppose, compared to Stromberg, they know who he is.
Yeah.
Because he's a famous businessman, isn't he? A famous corporate figure. But Scaramanga has that quality of, say, menace, off-screen presence. Christopher Lee's charisma is sort of in the room during that scene in M's office, even though Christopher Lee isn't there. Yeah. And in some ways, the best, from my experience as a player and as a games master, the best RPG villains are those that the very name of them makes players sit up. And you can have a whole session where this villain isn't encountered, but there's the sense they might be encountered, there's the sense that they're behind it. That kind of thing works better. And I suppose in that way I concede that Scaramanga's a really good villain.
He's a good villain.
He's a good villain. He's that personal thing is better than the global catastrophe thing.
Okay, next up, who are you serving next?
Well, my next one is a little bit obscure, but from a gaming perspective I think it's interesting, is Miranda Frost from Die Another Day.
See the Brunham. His films all merge into one.
They do. That's true. I did have to kind of Google it to find out the plot because I wasn't sure if it was Die Another Day, Tomorrow Never Dies, The World's Not Enough. I'm not sure. Yeah. The titles started descending into farce, didn't they?
Yeah.
You know.
So just remind me, Miranda Frost. What's
Miranda Frost is an MI6 agent, isn't she? Who is supposedly working undercover for the villain, so pretending to be the villain's assistant. I think his name's Gustav Grave or something, isn't he? So she's pretending to be his assistant, but she's an MI6 agent. But later in the film, it's revealed that she is a double agent who really is working for him, and she's kind of betrayed MI6 and betrays Bond and Halle Berry's character Jinx. They have a fight. Jinx and Miranda Frost have a fight on the plane, I think, at the end. Right. So it's that villain who's revealed. So they're not a Scaramanga, they're not Stromberg, they're not a Goldfinger, they're not a character you think they're the villain from the word go. There's someone who you can be fooled into thinking is on Bond's side, you know. And I think they do a reasonable job of that in Die Another Day. Yeah, I think in convincing you initially that she is a kind of slightly steely. I mean, the name Frost, she's frosty. She's frosty. She's frosty, you know. Yeah. And she's an MI6 agent, and she's a bit like Bond in a way, you know, kind of cold, calculating killer. But she's on Bond's side, and of course she's not. And then from a gaming perspective, that's always interesting when you can get a villain in a game who the players trust, but they're actually a villain. Yeah. And I think it's a really difficult thing to master in a role-playing game, because as a games master, you've got to strike a good balance between being fair to players and giving them perhaps a few clues that this person isn't what they seem to be, but not going too far that it's too obvious, so that players get perhaps a satisfaction from either A, when it's revealed, they go,
the clues were always there.
So all the clues were there, but we didn't see it. Or the other satisfaction of getting that niggling thought and thinking, hang on a minute, this doesn't quite stack up. Is this person all that they, you know, purport to be? Yeah. And and they do that quite well with Miranda Frost, I think, in that film. It's not the greatest Bond film, but they do quite a good job of it. And from a gaming perspective, those kind of villains are really good, but really difficult to run as a games master.
I think Miranda Frost makes me think as well about how women are treated in Bond.
Yes.
Because as we said earlier, they usually, I suppose they're the source of the character's weakness, aren't they? And they frame the source of the character's weakness. Yes. So, you know, narratively, or the Bond films get disrupted when women are involved because he gets distracted or...
Yeah, they're sort of his downfall, aren't they? So everything's going well, and then suddenly it's a bit like Live and Let Die, isn't it? Where it's all going fine, and he meets what's it called? Solitaire, and that complicates matters, doesn't it?
It's that thing about trust, and women and trust, and whether women are to be trusted. James Bond 007 RPG.
Yeah. Okay.
The fame points work in that there's an adjustment for women, so that they can never be as famous as their male counterpoint. Now you can say that as, you know, equal opportunities problem. That's an equal opportunities problem.
Yes.
Could go down that route.
Yeah, it's like the BBC pay scales, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think it's more telling that it kind of reflects that thing that women are not to be trusted. So the fame points work is that you can recognise them. So you recognise them as who they are. So NPCs, PCs can... Yeah. I know this person.
So fame points can be a disadvantage. In some contexts, yeah.
But it means that women, if their motivations are villainous, are harder to detect.
Yeah.
So that's kind of implicit in it.
It's implicit in the film. Yeah, that's in the films, isn't it? That's there in the films.
Yeah. As a counterpoint to your villainous agent, I'm going to raise another Pierce Brosnan film, and that's 006. Alec Trevelyan
Oh yeah.
From GoldenEye.
Sean Bean.
Sean Bean, yeah. Sean Bean, but it's not Sean Bean, is it? Because he sounds like my dad with his telephone voice. Yeah, because he affects like an upper class English accent.
He does. He does do that, doesn't he? And I read a story that when they started filming Game of Thrones, I don't know how true this is. I'm sure there are people out there who will correct me if I'm wrong. But the story was that Sean Bean was approached and he said, could you drop the sort of Yorkshire accent and do more of a kind of standard English accent for Ned Stark? And he said no. He said, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm doing it. So maybe he'd learnt a lesson from he'd learnt a lesson. As 006, he was sat there. I like to think he was sat there, the Premier. You know, the royal, because they're always royal premiers, aren't they, for James Bond? You know, yes, they don't have a premier, they have a royal premier, where some monarch, part of the monarchy will turn up, Prince Charles or whoever will turn up. I like to think Sean Bean's sitting there in the front row with his popcorn, and you know, do they do popcorn at royal premiers?
I'm sure they do.
I like to think they do.
Camilla licking her cheesy fingers.
Cheesy fingers, not gold fingers, cheesy fingers. Enough of fingers. We don't want to go down that road again. And I like to think Sean Bean's sitting there, and all the way through it, he's thinking exactly what you're thinking. He's thinking, I sound like Dirk's dad from the telephone voice. What was I thinking? Why didn't I just do it? Why can't a 00 agent be from Yorkshire? Yeah. He's perfectly... If a man can build an undersea base, or a space station, or all those kind of things, why can't a 00 agent be from Yorkshire? He's learnt a lesson, and it's paid off in Game of Thrones, albeit only for one season.
So in the pre-credit sequence, James Bond leaves him for dead, doesn't he? So
yes.
A fellow agent leaves him for dead.
Yeah.
Feels guilty about it. Because this is the 90s.
It started to make him feel guilty.
Yeah.
You know, he's more than happy in the 60s to throw an electric fire in a bath and say, shocking.
And then he turns villain, so he returns as the head of Janus.
Yes.
Because he's two-faced. He's two-faced, you see.
Two-faced, yeah. Very good, that.
And he has a scarred face, doesn't he, as a result of the explosion.
Yeah.
So, because every Bond villain has to have a distinguishing feature.
They do, don't
an extra
they?
nipple, scar, or you know, they've got to be distinguishable from hoi polloi.
Yeah.
And his motives are worthy of attention because they're kind of a post-colonial thing in the 90s, aren't they? Because his parents were Nazi collaborators who defected to the UK, and the UK sent them back to the USSR, where Stalin's death squads killed people around him.
Yeah.
So his father killed his mother and himself. So as an act of revenge, he becomes an agent within the MI6
with a long-term view to ultimately sort of do something treacherous.
Yeah. It's very complicated. It's as ludicrous, really, as Moonraker, really, isn't it?
It is. This is always the problem. It becomes a ludicrous way of you know. Yeah.
How can you have a beef against the whole country? Anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't seem. It's another fanciful villain, isn't it? With fanciful sort of plans.
It sounds.
It did sound. You know, the way you were explaining it, it sounded compelling and plausible. But the minute you think about it for longer than 30 seconds.
So in gaming, what does 006 represent? So similar to Miranda Frost, he's treacherous.
Yeah.
He betrays.
Yeah.
But I think it's also an equal match, isn't it? Because you never encounter double agents in films very often.
True.
To me, he's like an anti-paladin.
He is, isn't he?
I think I've done this. I think I played this trick on you.
Yeah. Can't remember.
In a Dungeons and Dragons game, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons game.
Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Where a PC, a character that I was playing as a player character in somebody else's game. This was back.
You did, didn't you? He appeared later as an NPC in your game.
Yeah.
But he got a bit mad,
but you didn't know he had.
Yeah.
And he trusted in him.
Trusted him a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Vasper Cruel. Vasper
Cruel. I mean, again, you're guilty of the same things that the Bond film, Vasper Cruel.
I watched too many Bond films. Rasper Crowe was a cleric, wasn't it, who was left for dead but resurrected.
Yeah.
And he was the one that I went off on my high horse to say, I'm not playing him again.
Yeah.
But I brought him back as an NPC, and you trusted him, but he'd gone insane because of as a result of the resurrection. And
that's right.
It was pitted against you. So there you go. So Alec Trevelyan and Miranda Frost. Who's going to win that round?
Well, I think it should be Miranda Frost.
Well, you would do, wouldn't you?
Well, I would do, because I picked it. Yeah.
I think they're equally matched.
Do you think they're equally matched?
I think we call that a draw. A score draw.
Yeah, they're equally matched in different ways. I mean, she's a much more sort of minor character than him, but
yeah,
it's quite a clever little trick. It's a clever trick for a James Bond film. I mean, it ain't no Sixth Sense twist.
Stop being disparaging about Bond films.
Sorry
about
you.
But
you're disparaging about Doctor Who.
Okay, and next up, who are you going to serve up next?
Well, there's one name, isn't there, that we have to mention. I mean, I've only got 3 choices. I feel obliged to mention it. It's got to be Blofeld, isn't it?
Blofeld.
It's got to be Blofeld, the recurring villain. Again, this is an RPG thing, isn't it? The villain who won't die. The villain who keeps coming back time and time again. Admittedly played by different people, but always wearing a beige safari suit. Why? The worst Blofeld is the one that gets pushed into the tank of goo at the beginning of
Diamonds Are Forever.
Diamonds Are Forever. And it just, what's the point of that? You just get pushed, and he pushes him, doesn't it? It's the opening scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
He pushes him into a tank of this goo, and he dies in there. But he holds on to the trolley so that he gets there, doesn't he? When you just jump off the trolley.
No, the most ridiculous. I'm sorry. The most ridiculous appearance of Blofeld is the pre-credit sequence for Your Eyes Only.
Oh yes, he's in the wheelchair.
Where he's in the wheelchair and he gets picked up by Bond and dropped down the chimney.
That's right. No, you're right. I take it back. You're right. That is the most ridiculous. And he's controlling the helicopter with a remote control.
He is, yeah. And Bond chases him in his multi-ability scooter across a rooftop.
Yeah.
And then picks him up with the...
Yeah, that's right. One of the kind of, what are they called? Blades of the helicopter. Not the rotor blades, but the blades underneath. It scoops him up, drops him into...
Stupid. Absolutely stupid. That's the thing with a reoccurring villain. And this goes back to kind of B movies and the pulp movies and Fu Manchu. You think he's dead, but he comes back. Arrives, and it is a classic trope of the genre, isn't it? But they become like parodies, don't they? I think
become parodies. They do become parodies, and also I think there is that problem to kind of connect it to gaming. The recurring villain in gaming is okay, but you can't overplay it. So you can have a villain who it's good to get players to think they're dead, but they're not. It's good to play that trick once, but you can't keep playing it. You can't keep playing it, can you? Because then it becomes slightly ridiculous. The players start to think, well, he's just going to come back, isn't he? This villain, whoever it is, he'll just keep coming back time and time again. So it's quite a neat trick to have the villain who comes back from the dead. But you can't overplay it, can you?
No.
In some ways, I'd go as far as to say a little bit against it. A little bit against it, because I think it...
Contrivance too far.
It's a contrivance too far, isn't it? If you can construct a really good, sinister, threatening villain in your games, who players are kind of frightened of the very name of them, that's good enough. If you defeat him, then that's kind of good enough. But to have him coming back time and again is a bit much.
We don't say the same thing about the Joker, do we, for example? The Joker keeps coming back.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But somehow, because it's in a real world setting, Blofeld seems even more ridiculous.
It's got that thing, isn't it, that what's odd about Bond films is they're not like, they're clearly not like the real world, are they? I mean, the Daniel Craig ones, they do try and make it more real world-ish. But certainly the Roger Moore ones are not real world. Even Pierce Brosnan ones are not. No. If you've got an invisible car in one of them, it's ridiculous. But at the same time, you're right. It does have one foot in the real world, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it's a bit comic book, but at the same time, it's still asking you to. You've got to buy into a degree of plausibility to it.
Yeah.
But I think, but going back to gaming, I think that is an interesting thing, isn't it? That you can read comic book, you can read Batman comics and the Joker and the Penguin and they keep coming back time and time again. That kind of works in a comic book setting, but I don't think it works in a gaming setting. For me, it would annoy me. It would bore me as a games master, but it would irritate me as a player if you feel you've gone to extreme lengths to defeat a villain and then the games master just brings them back time and again. I'd say you could probably do it once, but keep doing it, and it can be annoying.
Adversaries have to be defeated to be satisfying.
Yeah, because otherwise I think as a player you feel a bit tricked, a bit conned if you think, oh, it's got to come back again.
My offering is a smaller scale. Yeah. I'm going to go for henchman.
Okay.
I'm going to go for Teehee.
Teehee.
I like Teehee because as a young...
He's live and let die.
Live and let die.
Is he the guy with the metal arm?
He is, yeah. He has a metal arm.
That's right.
Because that's the thing, isn't it, with the henchmen? They're allowed to have a special feature.
They are. Odd Job's hat.
Yeah. Jaws.
Jaws is I thought you'd have mentioned Jaws,
Yeah.
Jaws is teeth. He's one of those famous henchmen, isn't he?
He's a reoccurring one, isn't he? And he actually...
Reoccurs. But he only reoccurs twice, doesn't he? He only reoccurs once, doesn't he, in Moonraker?
Yeah. And
so that's what I mean. That's okay, isn't it?
And they marry him off, don't they?
They marry him off to some little woman with pigtails and they float away happily into space. And certain death. Surely, and certain death. James Bond says to him, he becomes James Bond's ally, doesn't he, Jaws?
Yes.
In Moonraker at the end.
Yeah.
And he manages to do that. James Bond turns him by saying, what do you think Drax is going to do to you? You're not perfect. He's going to get rid of you because you don't conform to his perfect view of humanity.
That sounds like a completely ridiculous argument that a PC would make to an NPC, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Can I just roll for it? No. What are you going to
say? Well, I'll come up with this. But then it works. It works. But then Jaws drifts off to certain death. It's like, I've convinced you this guy's going to kill you, so what I'm going to do is suggest just a different way of dying.
It's a lovely moment. But with Teehee,
yeah,
he was a menacing figure.
Yes, yeah.
Menacing figure.
Yeah.
Kananga's henchman, of course, he lost his arm, don't you?
He's an alligator, wasn't he?
Alligator, Albert the alligator.
Albert the alligator.
Took his arm off, so he has this metal arm, which is slightly longer than it needed to be.
Yes.
Didn't it? It kind of goes down to his knees onto this.
Because his real arm inside it. It's a limited special effects there.
But it's great because it has that menace. It kind of locks, doesn't it?
That's right.
And for me, it's kind of showing in game terms. It's that special attack. It's that distinguishing feature that you're going to be looking out for.
Yeah, a feared special attack that this villain's got. Yeah.
It's got a scorpion tail. It's going to sting you, and it's a heavy poison. It's that. It's that thing that is going to be at the forefront of everybody's mind when.
Yeah, it's like the vampire, the Medusa, the villain that's got something powerful that is going to, scare you a bit because you think, well, whatever we do, we can't get on the receiving end of that, otherwise we're in trouble.
Yeah. And personality, henchmen with personality, and they're almost part. They give the villain a character.
Well, they do really. That's true. Particularly in Bond films, the henchmen are more colourful and more characters than the villain. Aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, certainly Jaws, The Spy Who Loved Me, Jaws is more memorable than Stromberg, isn't he? you know, and you know the same's true. It's like in Teehee, isn't it? There's Kadanga, but he's a kind of fairly conventional gangster, really, isn't he?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? He's not. He's a good performance, but he's not notable. Whereas Teehee is, you wouldn't forget him, would you? You know.
Do you remember Janice's henchman, Sean Bean's henchman? On the top, her who killed with her thighs.
Oh, on the top. Yes, on the top.
Kills people with her thighs.
That's right. Yeah, as you do. It's the the obvious way, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a convenient way of doing it. You have to go through all the seduction before you kill them, rather than just use a gun.
If only. Anyway. So what we've got? Teehee, Blofeld.
Well, I don't know. Blow. I think I might give you Teehee.
Teehee.
Maybe.
Thank you.
Because he's Blofeld. Blofeld isn't that menacing, really, is he?
No. So I think what we've learned from this exercise, I think, is I think that James Bond villainy is a good thing.
Yes.
And that it does give us plenty of role models and things we can learn for structuring our games. Yeah. Whereas you think they're frankly ridiculous. I don't think you've put your heart and soul into these villains.
Well, let's do one about Doctor Who villains then instead. Well, yeah, they are ridiculous, aren't they? They are ridiculous, but they're endearingly ridiculous. They're ridiculous, but I'm prepared to accept them as ridiculous.
But I think if you introduce them to the table, that they're fun. They have all the qualities of fun because they've got bold statements, they've got things that provoke.
They're a lot of fun. I mean, I think it's like anything with RPGs, isn't it? It depends what kind of game you're running, doesn't it? It depends on the game you're running. There are certain games where those kind of villains do work. You know, I do think it's interesting going back to the thing about the man with the golden gun. That Scaramanga is the most, in some respects, slightly plausible. Well, he's not that plausible because he kills people with a golden gun.
He's made out of a cigarette lighter.
Made out of a cigarette lighter. It's slightly ridiculous because then everyone knows who's done it. If you're an assassin, you just want to kill people and no one knows you've done it. But I'll wave that through. I'll let that go. But he's the most plausible villain in some respects, in that he's, you know, I suppose Goldfinger is a bit. Is it Goldfinger? Just wants to steal a load of gold. Yeah, I suppose that's. I'm not sure what for. He's already got a lot. What more for?
I think the difficulty with Goldfinger is that his plot, his scheme to break into Fort Knox is flawed. Really, that's.
I think with Bond villains, with me, you see, it's motive. It's always about motive. I question the motives of Bond villains. I don't see why they're trying to do what they're trying to do, and I always think it's not good enough to just say, "Oh, they're just mad, they're just crazy." Because I think, oh yeah, but crazy people have motives, don't they? You know.
Yeah.
If you look at crazy dictators and, you know, crackpots throughout history, yes, there's a degree of insanity, but where it derives from comes from a real place, like their upbringing or the political situation they're in. Whereas a Bond villain is just like, I've got loads of money, I've built this base, and I want to wipe all you lot out and rule the world.
For some of them.
Okay.
For some of them.
For most of them. Most of them. I think most
some of them have complicated backstories that turn them against the whole country. Right, without further ado, I'm going to have to go to my secret underground base. And where are you off to?
I'm going to a TARDIS. That's what I want to talk about. It's much bigger on the inside.
See you later.
See you later, bye.
There isn't a last bit. Incidentally, fact fans, unlike the other villains, Ernst Stavro Blofeld doesn't appear in the RPG because there was an ongoing dispute over the rights to the character and Spectre with the Thunderball producer Kevin McConey. I've really enjoyed discovering this game and adding it to our repertoire, thanks to everyone who's recommended it. The next part of our spy sequence will be coming early in the new year.
Night's Black Agents, part of the Gumshoe family, brings together super spies and vampires. The stakes don't get much higher or sharper. Coming up next time is more Call of Cthulhu with special guest Mike Mason, Call of Cthulhu line editor for Chaosium, who talks about his formative years in gaming. Also, we've just finished Fungi from Yuggoth, so we'll be making a rare trip to see Ed in his shed to look at the handouts that he made for the campaign. Blythy and I will be reviewing our experience of playing it again after 35 years and casting the judge's eye over the 7th edition rules. Daily Dwarf is also returning with a look at some of the scenarios for Call of Cthulhu that appeared in the magazine. At the time of recording, there's just a couple of weeks left for you to join the Patreon campaign to get a hard copy of the second Grogzine. The print run will be limited to the Patreon numbers at the end of September 2017. You'll kick yourself if you miss it. Check out the link in the show notes. The zine is not going on sale. It's a thank you to the honorary members of the Armchair Adventurers, the Grog Squad, whose generous support of the podcast makes the zine possible, as well as covering the cost of hosting this and other related activity. There's been a number of people pledging in August, so thank you to you all. At the $1 level, welcome to Peter Scaines, Stuart Dobson, WW2 Podcast, Andrew Seaton, John Watt. Thank you. At the $3.50 level, to qualify for the Collected Daily Dwarf Volume 2, is Matt Badham. Thanks, Matt. When it comes to the $5 backers, I like to award them a virtual gift from a table relevant to the subject of the podcast. This time, I'm reaching for the Q manual with a few additions of my own, so pay attention, Grog Squad. First up, Gene Mayers. He's joined the Grog Squad. He gets a milk bottle grenades, as used in The Living Daylights. Christian Lind has increased his pledge, and he gets a finger clamp, as used in Diamonds Are Forever. Todd Maudlin has increased to $5. He gets a cigarette case safe cracking unit. They always come in handy. Robert Arcangeli is also up to $5, so he gets a watch with a garrote wire. So be careful with that. Ian Engelbank has increased his contribution, and he always takes time to write supportive comments about the podcast, so thanks Ian. And you've got a flame-throwing arsehole. Sorry, I'll read that again. A flame-throwing aerosol. Incidentally, we'd appreciate their return with the rest of your equipment, intact for once, when you return from the field. Until then, adios amigos.